I want to start this video off by saying that I am a huge Star Wars fan. I honestly didn't watch much TV when I was younger, but the original, and to a lesser extent the prequel trilogy, were some of the most impactful movies of my youth. The Clone Wars is still one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and I love the series to death. All of that being said though, Fortnite Galactic Battle is one of the worst seasons I've ever played. When the concepts for a Star Wars season got leaked, I was honestly very worried. This is primarily because, in my opinion, both of the other collab seasons were either unoriginal but fine to play, or unoriginal and one of the most forgettable and lame experiences I've ever had playing a video game. I'm not against Fortnite collabs like I know many other people are. As a matter of fact, I love them. So many of my best memories from this game involved me and my friends just doing stupid shit wearing collab skins or using collab items. My main problem with the collab seasons, however, and especially Galactic Battle, is that they really overstep their boundaries. Instead of having a 2 to 3 week long update with maybe a mini pass or a POI or two, they completely overtake the game for months. Galactic Battle is somewhat better because it only lasted for 1 month, unlike Nexus War or Absolute Doom, but this still has the fundamental flaw of almost exclusively catering to hardcore fans of whatever series they're collaborating with, rather than the actual Fortnite player base. What I find especially annoying is that, unlike the two Marvel season, Galactic Battle is only made up of Star Wars weapons and recycled content. The most obvious example of this is the loot pool, whereas in Absolute Doom and Nexus War you still had standard guns along with the crazy Marvel powers, in Galactic Battle you only have Star Wars blasters, and unfortunately most of them and all of the other features that were added were actually recycled. Actually, it's easier to list the content this season that wasn't reused. You can now fly X-Wings and TIE Fighters, there's a new Force Lightning ability when entering a portal, the A280 CFE and DLT-19 ARs, ACP, BARM-12, and CA-87 Jawa shotguns, Westar 34 and DLT-44 pistols, along with the CR2, SMG, and IQ-11 DMR, were all added as new guns, as well as the thermal imploder grenade and the Captain Phasma medallion. Every other weapon and mechanic were recycled. But hey, you may be saying, isn't that like most of everything that was added? Why are you complaining? 4 out of the 5 Force abilities were reused. 6 out of 14 weapons were reused, and half of the utility items were reused. In terms of new content for a season, that means a little over half of it was just recycled from different periods of the game's history. The one thing I will give it in the originality department would be the TIE Fighters and X-Wing vehicles, as they give a much needed vehicle variety. Since around mid-Chapter 3, the only real vehicles we've had access to were cars and bikes. With a couple exceptions, those were our only options for 2 years. So it's super cool to see unique vehicles like these finally be added, even if they are collabs and also ridiculously overpowered. And I will say, a lot of the weapons this season feel super satisfying and fun to use. My 2 personal favorites are the DC-15 Heavy AR and the Jawa shotgun. The Jawa shotgun does such a stupidly absurd amount of damage if you get up in someone's face, and it reminds me a lot of the Dragon's Breath shotgun, but with a lot of those guns' flaws like the stupidly long reload time actually fixed. The Chapter 1 Heavy AR is my favorite Fortnite weapon of all time, and the DC-15 does such a good job replicating it in some ways, and actually exceeding in some departments like the damage and accuracy of it. Take notes, Ranger AR! But as far as weapons go, my praises kinda end there. A lot of the weapons aren't bad, they're just clunky. The 2 that really exemplify this are the DLT-19 blaster rifle and the DL-44 pistol. The DLT is at a similar place that the Fury AR was in back in Chapter 6 Season 1, where there's basically no reason to pick it up compared to the other ARs. Both of them have faster fire rates than their more accurate counterparts, but in terms of damage per second, they're nearly the exact same. The most notable aspect for why this is bad is that they suffer from long-range usage, as their spreads make them both fall flat compared to the other ARs. As for the pistol, it just has too low of a damage per second to ever be useful. The stats are almost exactly the same as the Monarch pistol from Absolute Doom, but without the ADS damage and accuracy buff. So this just puts it in a weird position of not doing enough damage to be used at longer ranges, but having a fire rate that's too slow to use at close ranges. It just feels like these weapons weren't playtested as much as they should have been, which is especially bad seeing that there are hardly any weapons compared to the other seasons. This is where one of the other main dramas behind the loot pool lies. Every gun from Lawless was vaulted, and along with them, so were all ammo types. Every weapon in this season has infinite ammo and a cooldown, rather than ammo and needing to reload. This makes the time to kill a lot lot slower, unfortunately, as these weapons are generally a bit worse to compensate for the infinite ammo, as well as making for a very spray-focused meta, as you don't ever have to reload. This makes wall pressuring and spraying, for instance, especially strong, as you can SMG spray an enemy's wall, switch to your AR and spray, switch back to the SMG, switch back to the AR, so on and so forth until they run out of materials, and you don't have to trade off of you losing any ammo. The fundamental shift in balance was definitely very off-putting to me at first, and I do think it's a very big problem, even though I have somewhat gotten used to it. The other big problem with having only Star Wars weapons would be the amount of guns in the loot pool. At the time of recording this video, all of the mid-season weapons and content has been released, with a combined 14 weapons overall. This is compared to 26 unique weapons last season, and is even lower than Chapter 1 Season 1, which slightly edged it out by having 15 weapons. This, along with the fact that half of these weapons are actually unvault, makes the loot pool seem really shallow, which adds a lot to the hollow feeling that this season has. Oh, and speaking of hollow, the mid-season content. There were 4 content updates for Galactic Battle overall. This might sound good, but just wait and see what they all added. The first one, get this, unvaulted Force Pull, and believe it or not, the Force rocks. Incredible. The second update added the Jawa shotgun and unvaulted the Wookiee bowcaster. The third update unvaulted the Amban sniper rifle and Mandalorian jetpack, as well as adding the Westar dual pistols. The fourth and final update added no new guns or items, but did unvault the grapple blade, riftigos, junk rifts, along with increasing the spawn rates of both shield level juniors and shockwave grenades. These were all minor additions, but there was one larger thing that was added in this update.
We've entered the atmosphere. Find your target, zero in, and fire at will.
The Star Destroyer bombardment. This is actually really cool. It functions quite similar to Godzilla a couple of seasons ago, where a rift is spawned at a number of preset locations, one player is allowed to enter, and then said player gets a crazy OP ability. Instead of being transformed into Godzilla and having a massive health bar that every player in the lobby has to shoot at, the Star Destroyer bombardment grants you exactly 1 minute and 15 seconds to control a Star Destroyer that is completely indestructible and just has you rain hellfire on everybody in the island. Reuse ideas aside, it's really cool basically having another unique transformation, as they've always been really fun. It was also in ranked for a couple of days, but that's kind of obvious since Epic couldn't care less about ranked mode, so that's kind of to be expected. On another note, one thing I really didn't like about this update was that it removed Loot Island for some reason. This never happened with the Godzilla transformation, so I really don't know why they decided to do this. But as for updates, I've neglected to mention one of them though, and that's because they really don't fit in with the rest of them. The Darth Vader AI update. This was included in the second update of the season and added a fully conversational AI of Darth Vader. It was so out of nowhere, and I really still don't understand why they did it, but I still do think it's really funny. The update was definitely where most of my playtime happened, because making the funny robot talk about Hawk Tuah is infinitely more entertaining than playing the actual season. There isn't much more else to say here, but this was definitely my favorite update of the season. Seeing what people made him say and do is still so entertaining and hilarious, but I do think this is better as a one-off. They added a whole toggle for talking to the AI in settings, which gives me the impression that they'll do more of these in the future, but with how much the AIs are so obviously censored, I feel like the charm will wear off pretty quick if they keep trying to do the same thing over and over. In conclusion, about half of these updates were very minor, with only one being a full content update and the other just adding a AI for some reason. Going off of the last 2 mini-seasons that had downtime updates about every week, this feels really lackluster. I also really hate how much of the mobility was unvaulted only in the last week of the season, as a huge lack of movement was obvious from day one. I just really don't think they did enough this season, and I feel like it really took away more than it brought, especially when it comes to mid-game. There's no more Loot Island, no more roaming boss vehicles, no more exotics to grab, no more mythics, or even ammo for that matter. This season really feels like them testing the waters and seeing how low they can go with collab mini-seasons and still have people playing it. While researching to make this video, I kept realizing how many bad aspects there were to this season. I didn't touch on things like removing movement mechanics, boons, sprites, or the fact that they are literally begging you to buy the battle pass randomly after matches, and yet there was still so much to cover. During Galactic Battle, Fortnite hit the lowest concurrent player count it has had in its 8 years of life, lower than Primal, Wilds, Vibing, Wrecked, or any of the other community agreed upon low points that the game has had. I've also noticed that they've been doing a lot more in an attempt to get people back on the game, such as giving out a free skin to all platforms, and even in the first time in the game's history, giving out near daily free login rewards. All of this, along with things like bringing back the XP shop and a skin that you have to grind for in Reboot Rally, it all feels like a desperate attempt to get people back in. I really hope a season like this never happens again, and that Epic can finally go back to having some original ideas.
Great, well, I'm off to go kill myself.